Alright, so out of all the incidents that occurred, out of all the penalties that were handed out during the 2024 United States Grand Prix, the one that is without a doubt going to divide opinion the most, and has already done so in truth, this is very much the flashpoint of the race, is the incident between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, the two title protagonists. They were battling it out in the late stages of the race for third place on the track, the final podium spot on the track. A huge result really in the championship, because what ended up happening is that Lando Norris ended up overtaking Max Verstappen off the circuit, and because of that he was handed a 5-second penalty, despite Lando Norris pulling out over a 4-second gap in the closing stages over Verstappen. That 5-second penalty sent him behind the Dutchman, behind his title rival. But the question is, should he have been given this penalty? Was it right that he got this penalty during this race? Well, as you can tell, I've got skin in the game. Anybody who's watching this will see the McLaren shirt on me. I'm going to try and be as unbiased here as possible and just kind of try and explain why the stewards have given him a penalty and whether I think that is fair and whether that is right, because we've seen a lot of penalties during this race for drivers that have been forced off the track, or drivers gaining an advantage off the circuit. Now, forcing a driver off the track is where you illegally prevent them from being on the track. You don't give them a car's width. Gaining an advantage off the track is where you overtake off the circuit, and that is what Lando Norris was punished for by the stewards. Now, just to set the scene a little bit with this, obviously these guys very much have previous. As we know, there's been a number of big battles on the track between these two. We also saw one right from the start of the race as well. Max Verstappen getting down the inside and aggressively putting Lando Norris wide during turn 1, which I absolutely have no problem with. I think that was fair. That is something that most people do, and it's up to Lando Norris to cover off that inside line, which he failed to do, and that ended up costing. It cost them both in truth, because they both lost places as a result compared to what they would have potentially been getting out of that corner. But that very much would have stoked the fires with that as well. Lando Norris very much feels like he was wronged with that. Max Verstappen just feeling like it's fair racing. For me, it's hard and fair racing. But let's talk about this. So Lando Norris ended up pitting later than Max Verstappen onto the hard tyres. His only pit stop of the race. He was trying to catch him, and he caught him really quickly. In fairness, I think it was like a 5-6 second gap after the pit stops, but he caught him up. He was battling, and before this as well, Max Verstappen was absolutely pinpointing his defending. He was perfect in my opinion. He did such a good job to keep a clearly much faster car behind him for as long as he did. He drove excellently, and Lando Norris also drove excellently up until this stop. My hat is off. If I was wearing a hat, it would be taken off right now to these guys, because they were doing fantastic, really. Showing why they are battling for this championship, show why they battled for wins for pretty much this entire season. But should Norris have been given a penalty? Well, I've got the incident here. I'm just going to do a bit of VAR here as it was and just have a look at it. Now, I can't show it you guys because of F1 copyright laws and everything. I would love to do that, but I can't. Go and look it up. I looked it up on Twitter myself personally. Do the same, or it's going to be up on the highlights on YouTube on the F1 channel before too long as well. So I'm just going to play the incident here. So Lando Norris is chasing down Max Verstappen, going down the long back straight. He's got DRS. He's much faster. He's closer than he's ever been before. Max Verstappen heading into the braking zone, goes to the inside. Now at this point where I'm here now, I'm just at the point before they hit the 50-meter road. Not literally, but until they get closer. They're about 60 meters away from the apex of the corner. Lando Norris is on the right hand side of the track, and he is ahead. He's a good quarter of a car ahead, I'd say. Then in the braking zone, once they start to brake and get a bit closer, it's a bit more even. Norris still ahead here. And as I play it here, and I've stopped it here right at the point where they are on the apex. And on the apex, Max Verstappen is ahead. And now this is crucial. This is so important to everything when it comes to this penalty. Because when I saw it at first, when I saw it live, I genuinely thought that is going to be so harsh if he gets a penalty here. But the more I look at it, the more I understand it. Because Lando Norris will feel, rightfully or wrongly, that he was ahead going into that corner. And he was ahead for a little bit. But when you actually get to the apex of the corner, Max Verstappen gets there first. Now we saw something kind of similar in a sense when it comes to Hamilton and Max Verstappen back in Monza in 2021. In that incident, when they came together, Verstappen got a 5-place grid penalty, I think it was, for the next race, because they both ended up going out of the race. And that was all because he was never ahead, and he was not ahead at the apex. Lando Norris was briefly ahead, but at the apex, he is behind. and that is also key. So if we keep running this here, basically what happens after that is that Lando Norris and Max Verstappen both run off the track. Now this is the counter argument, right? This is the other viewpoint. The reason why the stewards gave the penalty in the first place is because Lando Norris was not ahead at the apex, he went off the track, he gained the advantage and he kept the position, he did not give it back. Max Verstappen also ran off the track. Now, this is the thing where it gets a bit tricky for me, because personally, if you're asking personally here, I think them both running off the track like that basically it's not a fair thing. Sorry, it is a fair thing in a sense from both drivers, because they've both run off the track. It negates the effect of one of them running off the track. If Max Verstappen kept all four wheels, or at least two of the wheels, on the track, I think for me there would be no doubt and there wouldn't be much controversy here. But because Verstappen runs wide, and Jenson Button also said this on the Sky coverage here in the UK, well, in that sense, if you just let off the brakes a little bit, hit the apex first, you'll always be ahead of the apex, and therefore you'll avoid give your rival a penalty. And that's the interesting bit for me now. So I can understand why the stewards are given a penalty. Personally, for me, it's tricky. I can understand why they've done it, but at the same time, I would say, let these guys race. They've both gone off the track. So for me, personally, if you're asking me now, I would not give a penalty for this. But I see why they've given one. Does that make sense? It's like the football thing where it's just like, it's a bit soft, but you've seen them given. This is a bit soft, and we've seen it given. Now, some people will point to George Russell and Valtteri Bottas. Now, they had a similar incident earlier in the race where George Russell got a penalty. This time, George Russell was the inside driver. He effectively was where Max Verstappen was. So why was George Russell given a penalty for this and Max Verstappen not given a penalty? Well, again, differences. Max Verstappen was not given a penalty because he was ahead at the apex. George Russell, meanwhile, was behind at the apex, and because of that he also forced off Valtteri Bottas onto the far side of the track. He prevented Valtteri Bottas from taking a reasonable racing line. He effectively blocked him there, and because of that he got a penalty soon. Now again with this one, I must admit I think it's a little different, but I think again that George Russell's probably going to feel hard done by. It didn't make a difference in the end really, he still got an excellent result, but I agree with what Toto Wolff was saying. I'm not a fan of that penalty. The stewards should not be getting involved all the time when it comes to these things. I think it's going against what they said a long time ago. They said a long time ago that they're not going to get involved unless it's blatantly obvious that one driver's at fault. I don't think you can say in either incident, particularly Lando Norris and Max Verstappen one, that one was blatantly at fault here. I don't see it personally. Yes, one driver was off the track, but the other driver was also off the track. So Max Verstappen was never making the apex of that corner, and that's a big thing for me. So those are my takes on it, guys. I understand why they've given a penalty, but I don't necessarily agree with it, I'll be honest. But let us know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Verstappen, Norris, who was at fault, or is it just a racing incident? For me, racing incident. But I suppose you would say that with the shirt that I'm wearing. But let us know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell, and we'll see you very soon here on the F1 Chronicle for much more Formula 1 content just like this.